7. A few tantalizing glances of some things to come. It's Monday. We're going to look at a quick speech from the start of Act 2, Scene 3, and it involves satire. But first, we need to look back at iambic pentameter because it relates to something I'm going to ask you a little later. What is it, basically? What is iambic pentameter? Strange words. The clue is in penta, meaning 5. Have a quick think. Well, it's the way the posh ones phrase their speech. It's that structured verse form Shakespeare uses to denote somebody important or educated or noble is speaking. Therefore, would a drunk, uneducated porter use prose or iambic pentameter, also known as blank verse? Which one of those would he use? Have a think, because again, it relates to something coming up later. You need to know what satire is today, because after all the tension, Shakespeare gives you some an amusing character to occupy yourselves. It's called comic relief. So satire is the use of humour or exaggeration to mock and expose faults in others, usually used to mock political or topical issues. So news quizzes on TV or YouTube usually relate to current events, the news, but they're known as satirical shows. Here's an example. Now, if you're watching this at any time other than 2020, it'll help you to know that the world was placed under a quarantine because of a pandemic, a virus that was loose. And we weren't allowed to go out, or we aren't allowed to go out. And here is our Prime Minister in England instructing us to stay in. I'm going to show you in a moment how this is satirised and how.
There we go. That is what we are expecting from the British Prime Minister.
If at all possible, because we must and will maintain social distancing, and capacity will therefore be limited. So, work from home if you can, but you should go to work if you can't work from home. And to ensure you're safe at work, we've been working to establish new guidance for employers to make workplaces COVID secure. And when you do go to work, if possible, do so by car, or even better, by walking or bicycle. But
so this instruction was notoriously confusing, and a comedian called Matt Lucas turned that speech into satire, which I'm going to try and find now. Here we are.
So we are saying, don't go to work, go to work. Don't take public transport, go to work, don't go to work. Stay indoors. If you can work from home, go to work. Don't go to work. Go outside, don't go outside. And then we will or won't, something or other.
So do you see how satire works? It's mocking serious issues. Let's bear that in mind. Let's go back to the question. So what impact does it have on an audience? Just think about the answer to that question. What impact does it have on an audience? Does it help them? And if so, how? And why do you think Shakespeare would choose to add satire rather than even more sacrilege at this point in the play? Remember, Macbeth has offended the divine right of kings by topping King Duncan. Why didn't Shakespeare include more bloodshed? It's a tragedy after all. Why add satire now? I look forward to your views, or we look forward to hearing your views. And by the end of this lesson, we're going to look at just the start of Scene 3, the porter's speech. We're going to look more about satire, identify examples of satire in modern media. Actually, just done that. And on Wednesday, we're going to ask you to make a modern-day version of the speech coming up. So the porter is, if you see a picture of the door behind that banner, a porter is somebody who guards a door, also known as a port. And he's quite a comic character. There's some knocking you heard last time, and Shakespeare plays with the knock-knock joke conceit. So apparently it's confusing as to why there's been debate as to why this speech exists. I personally think that it's comic relief. it raises the tension. There's a theory here that Shakespeare gave himself the role. He was, after all, an actor. Sometimes in Shakespeare you have scenes that allow characters to change the set or change position, change clothes. So what I'm going to ask you today is, who are the characters the Porter is talking about? There are 3 characters, and what are they guilty of? There are 3 or 4 characters. These characters would have been familiar to contemporary audiences, and they've done something wrong, according to the Porter, which they should be punished for. So it's really a guidance for the Porter. Suggests that he is guarding the doorway to hell. There's an equivocator, there is a tailor, and there is someone else, and they've all committed acts that you wouldn't expect of them, and they're punished for it. And they all, when the Porter's roused by the knocking, he says, "What in the name of Beelzebub?" which means, what in the devil's name is making all that noise? And a farmer is said to have done something wrong. I'll leave that for you to discover from the text, and that someone needs a handkerchief. The farmer needs a handkerchief to mop his brow because it's so hot in hell. An equivocator is another word for a con man, and again, the Porter refers to an equivocator. What does a tailor do? A tailor is somebody who makes clothes. The tailor is alleged to have stolen out of hose, which means using less cloth to make clothes. So scrimping on cloth so he could keep profits. The primrose way, strange phrase, but this is the path to the right path, is the right thing to do. It's the difficult moral high ground rather than the easy path, which is doing the wrong thing. The questions I need you to answer today is, why is the Porter's speech not written in iambic pentameter? And secondly, what individuals does the Porter satirize, and what behavior does he make fun of? So you can either look at the text now, answer those 2 questions, or look at the text and have a look at this summary I made earlier today. It's rather strange, but not very long, so here it is. I'll see you on the other side.
Students, welcome back to the Heath. Last time we met, it was tense circumstances. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth were on their way up to their bedchamber to pretend as if nothing has happened, certainly that they haven't been involved in an assassination of a king. After all that tenseness, it's time for Shakespeare to apply some satire and comic relief to the text. So we're going to go to Inverness Castle. Now, the castle walls, the castle door is guarded by a gentleman known as the Porter, and he's going to give a satirical speech we'll analyze in today's lesson. The Porter is here. Now, this gentleman is going to open the door, respond to that knocking. That's going to be later on this evening, but until then, he has to occupy his time. A rather large bottle of beer. So, we'll join him later on, after he's had his refreshment, as usual, and hear what he has to say.
Here's a knocking indeed. The man on the Porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key. Knock, 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 who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Here's a farmer that hangs himself, on the expectation of plenty. Time in time, have napkins, you know, about you. Here, you'll swear for it. Knock, knock, who's there in the other devil's name? Faith, here's an equivocator, who could swear in both the scales against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet could not equivocate to Helen. Oh, come in, equivocator. Knock, 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 who's there? Faith, here's an English tailor come hither, for stealing out of a French hose. Come in, the tailor. Here you may roast your goose. Knock, knock, never quiet. What are you? But this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further. I thought to have let in some of all professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. Anon, I pray you, remember the porter.
So, year 7, that was the strange but amusing and satirical porter speech. Analyze that. Tell us, what 3 individuals does the porter satirize, and what behavior in them does he make fun of? By the way, if you'll read and have heard the phrase, "Come and roast your goose," that basically means the tailor is welcome in the castle. And a quick question on iambic pentameter: why is that porter speech not written in iambic pentameter? We look forward to hearing from you soon.